Hello, and welcome to the first of a series of podcasts. My name is Marco, and I'm a product and marketing manager for SfS Smoke and Fire Safety. We are part of Exyte Hargreaves. We offer our expertise from design to commissioning of fire and smoke control systems. We are interested in supporting the industry, and through the experts we work on a daily basis, we want to get and share different perspectives, insights, and provide an understanding of what's happening in our fast-paced changing industry. This podcast is focused on listening to the expert opinion, and we will be impartial. We would like to be your focal point of knowledge, so if you have any questions for fire and smoke safety, just get in touch with us. Can I now ask you, Paul, to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Paul, and thank you very much for asking me to chat today. I've had a long career in design, development, testing, and application of fire-resisting smoke control products, and this is supplemented by an understanding of ventilation and smoke control, having also worked with building construction in these areas for a long time. I'm also fully aware of the strong commercial requirements of working in manufacturing and contracting companies at a senior level, providing such products and systems to a competitive marketplace. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer. I've been active in standards development, bringing wide experience to both BSI and SEN committees as a chairman and also as a member. More recently, I've been providing consultancy services for fire dampers, smoke control dampers, and smoke control systems. And also with two other colleagues, we're about to offer a series of CPD style training on smoke control systems. I've also published a book entitled Smoke Control Dampers, which provides further information about them and their requirements in smoke control systems. And that's available through Amazon.
Thanks, Paul. So I have a question for you. That's the first one. What would you say is the most common assumption made when designers and clients are selecting smoke control dampers?
I think that the most difficult thing that they have to come to terms with first off is the fact that they don't understand the difference between fire dampers and smoke control dampers. And this has mainly been caused by the use of the phrase fire and smoke dampers. And this was a name that's grown into the industry and started probably back in the late 80s, early 90s, last century. And it means that it's got into common parlance. But what we've got since the late noughties is that we have two separate products, fire dampers and smoke control dampers. And what we commonly call fire and smoke dampers are actually fire dampers with a leakage classification. So they're there to prevent the movement of smoke, not to control smoke. So what we're trying to do at the moment as an industry is get to people to understand that there are essentially three products. FDs, which are a fire damper, which would be a curtain type damper. Motorized fire dampers with an ES classification, which is method 4 in ADB. And that is for use of sleeping risk areas and to protect the scare routes. And the third product is a smoke control damper, which is required for use in smoke control systems of all types. And that would also have an ES or an ES 1000 classification to make the fire testing equivalent with a fire damper.
Do you reckon it's quite difficult to educate the industry and make people understanding there are three different products at this moment in time?
Yes, but it is as simple as that. There are just three products, FDs, MFDs, and SCDs.
Thank you. My second question for today would be about test and product standards with regards to smoke control dampers. So which are the correct test and product standards for designers, clients, users when they are selecting these kind of dampers?
Okay, so it's quite clear for smoke control dampers, and they have their own set of standards. And if we start with the test standard, that test standard is EN 1366 Part 10. And that allows you to do two different types of tests depending on the application of the smoke control damper. One is a duct mounted test. So if, for instance, you were designing a basement, you would be having ductwork associated with your dampers. So they would have a test associated with ductwork. And then if you're doing what we would commonly call an above ground system in an apartment block, then these would be wall mounted smoke control dampers. And there's a different test for those within the standard as well. Then you have a classification where that's defined in a standard called EN 13501 Part 4, which allows you to classify things like smoke control dampers and smoke control ducts. And then finally, for the manufacturers, there's a product standard called EN 12101 Part 8. And this gives the manufacturers the requirements that they have to follow to nowadays UKCA or UK NI mark, as well as CE marking. And this is a commercial requirement for them. And whilst it seems like an easy way to specify smoke control dampers, if you're firm with that specification and you've got a requirement for things to be extra large or outside the scope, then you can't require a UKCA or CE mark.
So would you say that in a specification would be more important to mention the test and classification standard rather than C-UKCA marking, or what would be an impartial position to write a correct spec in your opinion?
Well, I think what you should be doing is referring to the test standard, which is EN 1366 Part 10 to repeat it, and then you should be giving the classification that you want. So for instance, you'd have an E integrity, an S leakage, 1,000 Pascal pressure requirement, and then you've got to make other decisions within the classification in terms of manual or automatic activation. But yes, a combination of the test standard and a classification string defining the products that you want to use.
Right, so that should be the perfect specification in the ideal world. Do you think there are certain elements that designers and specifiers should be avoiding when writing those specs?
One of the things that you see is that people write in everything single standard that they can think of, but they haven't looked into it. So they're trying to pass the responsibility down the chain by just saying, consider all the standards and make the right choice. Whereas it's a relatively simple choice if they give you the correct test standard and the correct classification.
So back again, we are into that first question and about education in our industry. That's my key takeaway.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it's quite simple, but it's a case of people actually learning and following the simple rules.
I don't want to be going off track, but who do you think is the key responsibility when we're talking about educating the industry? Should it be more deemed to suppliers? Should it be more due to the individual?
I think it's a combination of all of those, because if you one of the things that we're going through at the moment is our big changes in terms of competency as a requirement from the government and as a result of the Grenfell Tower tragedy and Dame Judith Hackett's report, and learning about this stuff and making sure that you have your own level of competency must be something that individuals will need. And also looking at that from company perspectives, making sure that people within your company are passing on or requesting the correct things is the best idea, because you have a responsibility as the designer.
So, thinking about designing these smoke systems, what do you reckon, in your opinion, those 2, 3, 5 key critical elements that should be considered every time?
Well, one of the things that often gets overlooked, because we're looking at smoke control, people lose sight of the fact that we also have to look at compartmentation. And if nothing else works, we fall back on compartmentation. So compartmentation must be designed to work. And that's why one of the reasons that we have smoke control dampers and smoke control ducts and builders work shafts that are built correctly is that a smoke control damper is probably the only product that we allow to breach compartmentation. So if we look at a fire damper, it will shut and stay shut and maintain compartmentation. But to relieve smoke and heat from a fire situation, smoke control dampers have to open. And you then have to have a clear path to the outside of the building to remove that heat and smoke. And we also need a clear path for makeup air to get in, because one of the points I always say is you cannot suck on a closed box. So selecting the smoke control damper correctly, because if we're looking at an above ground apartment system, the only damper that will be open will be the one on the fire floor to allow the smoke to escape, and all the other ones will be staying shut to maintain the compartmentation of the shaft that goes to the building. And it's a similar thing with the smoke control ductwork in a basement and the supply ductwork as well. We need the dampers to be open to provide the paths, but we need them to be closed to protect the compartmentation into the other areas and zones.
And do you think there are other key critical elements when we are choosing smoke and fire dampers we should be considering?
Well, this is the problem, and this is the other issue with regard to specifications. Don't use the term fire and smoke damper, and don't think by swapping it around and calling it a smoke and fire damper it does something different. We must be selecting smoke control dampers because they're tested to maintain closure and compartmentation, but they're also tested to maintain opening to allow and keep that path for extract and supply clear.
Thinking about our industry, which we did mention at the beginning, it's very fast-paced, but it's also changing dramatically over these days. What do you think about one of the key challenges we might face over the next months and years to come?
Well, actually, I'm going to give you three. The first two is the knowledge of smoke control systems in general. And the second one is the requirement for building owners and other people to keep them tested, working and maintained. There are many, many systems out there in apartment blocks and other buildings that need inspecting and perhaps correction, both in terms of their design and their components. And then for new products, the key thing we need space in buildings to put in the services. We need the space to install the ducts and the cables and the dampers. And this requirement needs to extend as far as architects and consultants and not be pushed down to a level that means that people are trying to fit stuff and they can't follow manufacturer's instructions on the installation. And that's going to change as well because of the proposed gateway system. Certainly for high risk buildings, at least, and probably it should be best for others, that at REBA stage 4, there's going to be the requirement for a solid design, not things that are left open to be decided and squeezed in at the last minute.
I fully agree with you. Yeah, there's no one, at least three. And if you could pick up one thing that we should change over the next months and years to improve our industry, making it feeling safer, better, and more robust. What do you think that should be?
We need to make the change to doing it right rather than doing the bare minimum. A lot of the guidance documents are left simple and they're only really meant for simple buildings, and we're getting more and more complex buildings and we're trying to get more out of them. And they have to put in a minimum level rather than a required level. And they put in the minimum levels with the expectation that experts expand between the lines and provide properly safe buildings for the occupants.
Thanks, Paul. If you have any other thing you might want to add, that'll be great. Otherwise, I think you gave a very strong, robust, and insightful overview about our industry and how it is and how it might change in the future. So I'd like to say thanks. I'm sure the industry will find your CPD presentations very important and very formative. So good luck with that and with your book. And in general, we would like to hope you found this podcast interesting and useful for your everyday practice. So thanks for listening. This will be posted on our LinkedIn page, so SfS Smoke and Fire Safety, on our website and other social media. More podcasts talking about different topics will be coming over the next months. So thanks for the attention from Paul, Marco, and SfS Smoke Fire Safety.